Well, good morning, dear friends. What's the date? I have to look. It's May the 14th. Who would have thought we would be meeting like this on May the 14th? And greetings to those of you on Facebook and YouTube. There was an unfortunate incident last night on Greg Malouf's gathering that 10 or so people appeared, and as has been happening around Zoom, when the address is available, they started speaking expletives and showing gross pictures. And Gregory had to shut down his meeting. If that happens, and the way it happens is you have a public meeting. This meeting is advertised on Tricycle, so people can find it, and that's one of the wonderful things about the open internet. I just made a choice this morning that I could with a little click make it so you folks can't unmute yourselves. But there's something so nice about that you have some freedom in that. So I'm not going to do that. If we do get intruded upon, what I will do is just shut the meeting down, and then I'll come back on about 5 minutes later. So if you wanted to return, that's an easy way that people who, if they were on right now, they would know. But if they're not on right now, they wouldn't, and they'd just go away and harass someone else. And the other thing, and we'll be talking about this at the board and the teachers, how to then get the next code. What we're going to do, I'm not sure. But one possibility, the one that I have lots of control over, is I have a blog, which I use rarely, but it's portlandinsight.org/blog. portlandinsight.org/blog. And that's where I would post a new meeting. Also, I haven't known quite what to do with this. When I initially set up this meeting, all the meetings actually, we could have clicked one place where it would have required your name and email to go in before you could join the meeting. And that would be a very handy thing if I knew the emails of people who participate with some regularity, because then we could easily reach out and reset the meeting. Don't know how to do, and Zoom is overwhelmed, and the editing function that should do that isn't working. So, more tech than you need to know, but we will persist, and we're such a strange lot, us human beings. Why waste time of an evening going around and harassing people who are talking about meditation or anything? That's a good question. I think it comes out of unhappiness, don't you guess? So, that said, I'm happy to be here with you in my little tent, and it's another day that the adventure of life is going to be very interesting.
Robert, you've received some input on assistance from people about how to help with Zoom. So maybe, I don't know if the chat disappears after the meeting, but you might want to read it and take people up on their offer.
Oh.
Tempest offered to help with Zoom, and Christopher helped with ideas. So maybe there's some techie people who can help you.
That'd be great. May I ask you to do this? Send me an email, robert@robertbeatty.com. Robert at, familiar name, Robert Beatty, BEATTY.com. Thank you. Help? I don't need help. Oh dear. No, that sounds wonderful. So, from a very different part of our human nature. Einstein. A human being is part of a whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. She experiences herself, her thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a sort of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Isn't that something? A human being is part of a whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a sort of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all beings and the whole of nature in its beauty. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Refuge in the mystery of being awake and that which we discover. Yes, but that which we discover these delusions of permanence and satisfaction and this I am I, me, mine. So, let's just settle back for a little while. Settle back into now. To realize how this mystery of consciousness arises with matter, the term I like to use for the momentary dropping into the body is plopping. Just plop into the body. It's always there in the background, and it can become foreground in a heartbeat, less than a heartbeat. Notice the thighs and feet, and if you're sitting in a chair where your back touches the chair. The life in the hands. Noticing the arising of sounds, of thoughts, paying attention to any mood that's present. Moods color everything until they're seen for what they are, which is another arising of a phenomenon in consciousness. And let us honor the present moment with some attention to breathing in and breathing out. Each breath has its beginning. That beginning doesn't take any intention, or it doesn't need to, because the body breathes itself. How intimate can you be with that beginning of each breath? And it's not a clutching on the breath. It's really the opposite of that. It's resting back into the present moment. A human being is part of a whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. She experiences herself, her thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a sort of optical delusion of consciousness. We explore with a warm heart, community, and the teachings of the Buddha. What is this optical delusion of consciousness? Following the teachings on mindfulness, we practice receptive, warm awareness of all those things we think of as self, myself. The body, the breath, the thoughts. Memories, plans. Allowing allowing yourself to see, to know, to perceive, to receive intimately whatever the truth of this moment is for you. Let's drop wishful thinking. Let's let science be our guide. Science being the willingness to carry out an experiment with an open mind, with the best instrumentation we have, and see what's true. You and only you can carry out the experiment of your awakening. The observation instrument is concentration and mindfulness and the other enlightenment factors. And we study particularly the mind, this mind. Perhaps it's tranquil this morning, at ease, relaxed, very brilliantly awake, effortless. Or perhaps the 5 hindrances are providing their display. There may be desire. It could be obsessive desire. There could be aversion or disliking. That too can be obsessive. It could be restlessness, agitation, and worry. Or sleepy dullness, sloth and torpor. Or doubt. Or the entire palette of emotions. There could be fear. There could be great loving compassion. There could be jealousy, loneliness. Know it all for what it is. Changing, evanescent. Real for a nanosecond and gone. in one world, the world of infinite interconnection and interbeing. There's no meaning to time. There's just now. A bird sings, a thought arises, the breath comes and goes. We have arrived home. There's nothing to prove, nothing to gain. And then there's another tuning of consciousness where there is a body. Somebody sits here. And there are pleasant and unpleasant sensations in the body. And there is the reality of commitments made to oneself and others. There are children to take care of, and emails to respond to, and gardens to tend. And so in this moment here, in this gathering, please become aware of that which is your separateness, that which allows you to participate in the everyday activities of your life. Notice your hands, these marvelous accoutrements, and maybe let them massage each other a little bit. Let them love each other. We're not able to hug each other these days, but we can certainly express love to ourselves with our hands. Perhaps let your hands rise and let them touch your face in a loving way. This is the face of the beloved. It has no gender, it has no... What does it have? It has contact. And the contact can be so kind, so... There's that place on the bridge of the nose where the glasses weigh heavily. Press a little harder and find the orbit of the eye and discover that there really is, this is the head, this is the skull of a skeleton. That it's a padded skeleton that makes its way through life. And perhaps as we touch our own faces, what we think of as our own faces, so lovingly, why not make an intention to hold that loving attitude throughout the whole day? To let today be an opportunity for awakening to our separateness and our interbeing. And then as it comes time to the moment to let the eyes open, notice how that happens. Notice the arising of an intention and then the actual willing of the eyelids to rise. And then seeing. Seeing. This for me is really a lovely example of cherishing no enemies. To create an enemy, one has to create a self. And a couple of times during the meditation, I discovered that there was a little, it was very small, blessedly, but a little return of hypervigilance, ready to hit the kill button here, and there really is a place for being alert, attentive. Without that, we wouldn't survive in our lives. We have to look left and right, and we have to do some things to keep ourselves safe. But I noticed also how immediately the thought of that, it's like a little fearfulness would arise, and then it was so obvious that it was a phenomenon arising, and that the threat is really minor here. And then I found this mind dropping back into a lot of silence. When we're done, I think I'll spend a while just sitting here. It's one of the skillful efforts in meditation to restrain unwholesome states. Once they're restrained, to keep them restrained, to bring into being wholesome states. And then when you discover it's present, why not stay? There was one other thought. Wonder if it will drift back in. I guess not. So please let us take advantage of this next little while. Is there anything happening for you that you'd like to share? And it's set so you can just unmute yourself, so please do that if you wish to speak.
Robert, this is Jim.
Yeah, here, just a little a moment of lost wishes.
Okay. Feel the burn.
Feel the burn.
When I heard about Gregory's escapade last night, I reached for my my frog that I got from my grandkids. It's my guardian angel. So I put my frog on my shoulder for the rest of my meditation. I had a class going last night also, but I was not Bob. I had the frog on my shoulder. I used that as my reassurance, but that turned that hypervigilance into playfulness. But I'm sure vigilant now.
I just remembered the thing that drifted away, which is I don't feel any animosity toward those people. I've been that stupid in my life. I've thought, isn't this funny? And I don't know, who knows? Maybe they know each other, maybe they don't know each other, but they found a way to create a ripple in the world, and so they're doing it, and it's karmically unwholesome and not good for them, and it could hurt some people, people with trauma issues around that. But I can't hate them. I'm not even particularly angry at them. It's like, God, let's grow up. That's such childish behavior when, here's the sadness. Life is so incredibly hard at every time. But now, why go around and disrupt people when they're getting some nourishment? And it obviously comes out of ignorance and stupidity and wishing they belonged, and so we just have to do what we can to avoid it. But I don't know that we need to waste any time at all in villainizing or thinking they're so different, because they're not that different. They're not that different from me, that's for sure. So thank you. I'm glad that got to the surface here.
Robert?
Yes.
This is Jim.
Hello, Jim.
Something I'd like to share today about seeing. I've been lately in the habit of getting up before you and watching the dawn and sitting in this room, and it has two windows. One faces north and one faces east. And since it's before dawn, I prefer to sit in the one that's facing east. But every now and then I go look at the other one. And it seemed up until today in this room, I was either looking at one window or the other. But how could I look out both at once? Or why would I want to? Well, they're fairly close together. They're in a corner, and near a corner, I discovered this morning that just staring at the corner where there's nothing at all, looking into nothingness, allowed me to see two directions at once. I could see them both. And that I thought was probably a metaphor for something, but I don't know what it is yet. But it seemed like an important observation I wanted to share.
Thank you.
Hi, Robert. This is Bern.
Hi, Bern.
Hi. I just wanted to thank you so much for yesterday and for the big hug. I had not considered hugging that way before, and I shared it in another meeting, which made me look really brilliant.
Well, we use what we have. Someone showed it to me.
I had to admit, I'm like, no, it's not mine. Somebody else showed it to me. But it's really nice, especially living without people and not getting hugs, to actually hug somebody like that and look into their eyes. So thank you so much for that yesterday.
Shall we do it? Let's
Sure.
do it. Let's have a big hug. Oh. And you can wiggle a little bit. It's really okay. And just yummy. Everyone can participate. Hug yourself, pat yourself. If you like being patted, we could go totally over the edge. What about I love you? I love you, Can't help myself. Yay. Ooh, good. Are you perchance on the PIMC Facebook page? Have you friended PIMC? Or do you even...
I have not yet.
Anyway, if you want to, there's a quite touching thing that Jennifer, my wife, sent me, and I forwarded it yesterday. It's this family took a big sheet of plastic and put it up on pipes. So there's a wall of plastic, and then they cut holes in the plastic, and they attach to it the big long gloves that one uses when working with cows, and and that Grandma came. And the kids were all excited. Grandma came and she got out of her car. And then she came and put her arms through one of these. And the kids had 2 different levels of arms they could put. So they had this big hug through plastic. It was really touching. Yeah. They went to a lot of trouble to get that to happen. But those little kids and their grandma, they got to they just got in there, and did it. And it's cool. So thank you for sharing.
Good morning, everyone.
Tempest, hello.
Hey, so the hugging thing actually made me think of something that I saw the other day on Sam Neill's Instagram. He did a video where he said something that makes him feel better, like right before he goes to sleep, is he just smiles. And I think the way he put it was, I just grin like an idiot. But just like the act of smiling released all these good feelings in him. And, he's in isolation like the rest of us. And he's like, this is one of the ways I've been dealing with this, is just smiling to myself. And then I feel much better. And so I've been doing that too. And I feel like this in combination with self-hugs would be really wonderful. So I just want to share that.
Thank you. Makes me smile just to think of it.
Want to hear a poem that I wrote a couple of days ago?
Sure. Hi, Tim.
Hi. It's inspired by a poem by Hafiz, the one about letting your loneliness cut a little deeper. It's a beautiful poem by Hafiz.
Mm-hmm.
So it's called For Hafiz. We are snowflakes, rainbows, butterflies. Our fleeting nature is our royal gift. So let it bleed. Let the tears flow. Let our hearts be broken and crushed like grapes in a vat. This is life in all its ragged, beautiful, bloody, shit-stained glory. Let your tears run sweet and salty. Let your laughter be sudden, loud, and inappropriate. And let each bright flower crack open your heart and draw the light and silence in.
Oh, again, please.
Can I hear it again?
Oh, yeah.
Got to do them at least twice.
At
Huh?
least twice.
For Hafiz, we are snowflakes, rainbows, butterflies. Our fleeting nature is our royal gift. So let it bleed. Let the tears flow. Let our hearts be broken and crushed like grapes in a vat. This is life in all its ragged, beautiful, bloody, shit-stained glory. Let your tears run sweet and salty. Let your laughter be sudden, loud, and inappropriate.
Mm.
And let each bright flower crack open your heart and draw the light and silence in.
Mm. May I request you send me that for my poetry collection?
Sure, I'll email it to you.
Thank you. Whew, lovely.
I'm loving this quarantine. I never did stuff like writing poetries and songs before in my life. Really enjoying it.
Haven't you written songs before with all your music background? No?
Nah, I just write bass lines,
You're the bass man.
bass man.
I
I've only written one song ever before in my, two songs ever before in my life before this thing happened.
Wow. Well, it's broken you free. How beautiful.
Big fun.
I think we're going to have some more opportunity. Another voice.
It's me, it's Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
That is a really hard act to follow. With this question. That is such a beautiful poem. Thank you. My question has to do with hypervigilance.
Yeah.
And I was just, that word just kind of hit me when you said it. And I just wondered if you had any other thoughts on that for those of us that were given that gift many decades ago and still carry it.
Right.
Thank you.
Mm. Well, we're designed to be vigilant. A little anxiety is a natural and essential feature of human life because we need to stay alert to danger. Some of us, though, if we were intruded upon in childhood in a variety of different ways, if our boundaries were violated, we can develop at a physiologic level the habit of staying overly, unnecessarily vigilant, hyper-vigilant. And if we're fortunate enough to find a spiritual practice, and also to have people around us like therapist-type people who understand what to do we can sometimes open consciousness in such a way, in a safe way, where we're well contained internally and externally, so that we can grieve some of the grief that's left over from early experiences, and not only early experiences, but we can feel some of the feelings that were there and let some of the thoughts move, and then even our level of physiologic arousal can change. And that's the work of a lifetime, as I experience it. And then on the meditation end, all day yesterday I was caught in a sense of not enough time. And I knew what I needed. In fact, Jennifer asked me, what do you need? And I said, I need an hour doing nothing, because I'm caught. I'm caught in a shrunken, frightened, urgent sort of space. And she said, well, why don't you take it? And to which I replied as I went out the door, I'm caught in this idea that I don't have enough time. And this morning I'm not caught in that. But yesterday it was very convincing. And it came from it's very old for me. But what's needed? One of the reasons for a significant daily morning practice, in my view, for myself certainly, is if I can remember at a visceral level, at an arousal level, what Einstein was describing, even for a few seconds, then the whole system of arousal and hypervigilance is somehow weakened or denatured, or it's I remember what's true, what's real. And it's not particularly a cognitive process. It's much bigger than a cognitive process. So there's an analogy. I think I mentioned this on here one morning not so long ago. If I take a tablespoon of salt and put it in a glass of water, it's very strong. If I take that same tablespoon of salt and put it in the Willamette River, it totally disappears. If I can remember that I'm the Willamette every day, then when the salt comes along, it's not nearly as upsetting if I can remember my vastness. So that's what I think of around hypervigilance. And John Gottman, in his research with couples, has found some things really remarkable, which is that, and this is an untrained, a non-meditator, ordinary human, that he's found that in couples, when either member of the couple has their heart rate over 100 when they're in conflict, there is no purpose in continuing the conversation. The only thing to do is to stop. And it's very hard, because that's the moment when you really want to make your point. When you're, and then what they found is that the average woman, whatever that would be, but anyway, women take about 15 minutes to calm down and to stop enemy imaging and so on. Men, on average, take half an hour. And that's a huge problem with us, because and they have an anthropological hypothesis, which is that before we were humans, or even as humans, that the males formed a perimeter around the band, and that the females were in the middle, and that there was selective advantage to the women, the females, coming to relaxation because number one, their milk would come in, and they could take care of the babies, and they could just create that container. And for the males on the periphery, if they stayed hyper aroused for longer, they stood a better chance of not being eaten. Because that, they hear that click in the woods, and then they're hyper aroused. So we come to hyper arousal from ancient historical, anthropological, biological. Maybe even not call it hyper arousal in that case. Maybe just call it arousal. That I need to be on guard. But some of the defense mechanisms we developed as infants and children are really irrelevant now and overblown. And so that's where we're fortunate we can do the kind of healing that we can do.
Thank you.
I have one more thing to say about that. I had a fair amount of neglect and abandonment in my childhood. Sick mother, alcoholism. I mean, it was in a certain way, it was a very normal alcoholic family, and never had a shortage of food or anything. But my, in this programming of this being, the presumption of neglect and abandonment it's still here. After all the therapy and meditation, what's changed is the intensity, of course, but also is that most of the time I can see that happening now and comfort myself. It's like, oh, there's that. Okay. All right. It's not real here. It's real internally, but I can comfort myself. And so my life improves drastically the more that I can do that. The smaller that neglect, abandonment, reactivity, presumption, prediction gets, the more my relationships go better. Hence, another reason for a significant meditation practice, which is where I learn that it's okay. Everything's okay, ultimately. And this personality is one tuning, which is important, but it's not fundamentally who I am. Given the right trigger and torpedo, there's more work to do. So thank you for that question, and I'm glad to have had an opportunity to articulate that. Oh my goodness, it's after 8. Anybody sitting with anything you'd like to share or ask?
Robert, I'm sitting with something. It's Pamela.
Hello, Miss Pamela.
All this week, I have been incredibly sleepy in the morning. I don't want to get up, and I do anyway. And I haven't been able to figure out why I'm so sleepy, because I'm getting enough sleep. And some things that you just said led me to realize that I think that I'm so tired, but because the increased meditation is bringing things to the surface. What I really would like to do is sleep through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to notice that I'm just noticing a lot of changes are coming for me, and awareness.
Yeah.
So I just have noticed. I'm grateful to myself, I guess, for showing up and not saying, oh, it feels so good to stay in bed, I think I'll skip it today. Right,
That's one of the real blessings of having a community of practice. That, no, I'm going to go, and we do things, we do very wholesome things that otherwise we'd never do. I mean, but there's that third of the four enlightenment factors. There's mindfulness, curiosity, and then it's like persistence and a willingness to, I'll do it. Damn, I said I would, I will. And then we discover things. But sloth and torpor comes along. That's okay. Sloth and torpor comes along like that sometimes when something previously we have managed to keep unconscious begins to break through. All kinds of defenses against experiencing it will occur. Relapses of all kinds. That's one of the benefits of having a well-experienced teacher on retreat in particular, because there are times when the best guidance is, yeah, you should go home, or take the afternoon off, go for a walk by the lake and just rest. And there are other times when the proper guidance would be, don't skip a sitting, don't sleep a lot, eat less, stay very present. Make exertion here. And then having your coach, you can. It's like, okay, I can do another 3 push-ups if I have to, that kind of thing. But it's not that we do that all the time. It's that we figure out how much is necessary in a particular moment, how much effort. So thanks for sharing that. That's very useful.
Thank you. Having the community, even though nobody would say anything, having the community and knowing somebody might notice I wasn't here.
Right.
Is one of the things that sort of gets me up.
Well, in some meditative traditions in the Zen world, my experience in the Zen world is not very great, but I did a couple of 10-day retreats, sesshin, as they call them. And one day I really wasn't feeling good, and I didn't go down to the morning sitting. And there's a knock on my door, a brisk knock. Where are you? What are you doing? Well, I'm not feeling well. Do you have a fever? No, I don't think so. Well, then you must come down. It's like, wait a minute, no, wrong. How rebellious will I become? And all that stuff. You can't make me, and I represent a different spiritual tradition. There was the same thing on that session. They ate really fast. We do this mindful, slow eating, and the food would come, and we'd serve ourselves, and we'd inhale the first plate, because then there'd be a clap, clap, and then you could take seconds, and then clap, clap, and it was over. And I went to the Roshi and complained, and he said, "Oh, you're from that mindfulness tradition, aren't you? You think you have to eat very mindfully and slowly to be mindful. Let's see if that's true." Ding-a-ling-a-ling, interview over. Funny. So thank you. All right. Is there anybody with anything percolating that we would be wise to touch before we go? I see Stephanie is poised. Well, we didn't have any intrusion. That's really nice. I'm going to unmute everybody and whoops, I got to put my glasses on to read which is which. Unmute. Please have a lovely day, mindfully loving yourselves and all beings. And here we go. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And let's do a great hug. Hugging these bodies that we identify with. Please have a lovely day of mindfulness. Goodbye.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Be happy.
Bye.
Unmute yourself.
Heidi, good morning.
Hi, Lauren. Happy birthday.
Thank you, dear friend.